Hi there, Walterners. I'm Jack, and this is DSNY Newscast. And with D23 2024 officially in the books, it's behind us, Disney is still dropping news. They've revealed some big details about the massive expansion that's going to be coming to the Magic Kingdom, and it's actually been touted as the largest expansion in Magic Kingdom's history. And they've revealed this brand new piece of concept art to go along with it. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to dive in and dissect everything that we know about this huge expansion so far. I'm going to talk about the scale and scope of this project, the actual size of these lands, and logistically how it could work from a construction standpoint over the next few years. But where I want to begin is in actual fact that Disney has now officially confirmed that to make way for this expansion, we're going to have to say goodbye to Tom Sawyer's Island and Rivers of America at the Magic Kingdom. They're going to be completely removing that whole section of the Magic Kingdom to make way for this huge expansion. And they even said in the statement that to make way for this completely new frontier, the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer's Island will be transformed into vast and rugged terrains for a rally race with some of the world's most iconic racers, which is obviously the Cars attraction there. So they're going to be filling in all of the Rivers of America. Now, as you can see in the artwork, it does seem like there's some small pockets of water that we can see scattered throughout the artwork, but in no way is it Rivers of America as we know it, and it's not even going to be a shortened version of Rivers of America like what they did over in Disneyland back in 2015, 2016 to make way for Galaxy's Edge. So they're going to be filling in the entirety of Rivers of America to make way for this huge expansion. But the other important note here is Frontierland is going to be remaining, at least in name only. The name Frontierland is going to be staying, as they referenced it many times throughout the article, even with this quote by the Walt Disney World portfolio executive producer at Imagineering, Michael Hudgens, saying that we're going to put guests in the driver's seat as we quite literally explore a new frontier in Frontierland. So the name Frontierland, I know there's been a lot of discussion around, taking down certain signs and Frontierland not being shown on certain posters, but it seems like they're committing to the name of Frontierland, but they want to change the idea of frontier. Now, Josh D'Amaro did say at the Disney Experiences Showcase on Saturday that they were going to be going from the American West and exploring the American wilderness as well. Now, in the artwork, we can also see that the existing part of Frontierland that we all know at the moment, with the exterior facades of Frontierland all the way down to Country Bears, is still there within the artwork. That's going to be kind of themed to the American West, and then they're going to go beyond that into the frontier and into the American wilderness with this Cars area. So there's some big changes to the concept of what a Frontierland is at any one of these Disney parks, and it will be the first Frontierland that I know of that doesn't have a Rivers of America. By filling in the Rivers of America, they do free up a lot of land to be able to be used for attraction space and these brand new lands. And to be more specific about that, let's actually measure it out and see what the scale of this thing is. So if they fill in Rivers of America, you get roughly 10 acres of space just by filling in the basin of Rivers of America and using up Tom Sawyer's Island. But if you then add in the additional surrounding areas of Rivers of America, the extra land to the sides, you get around 12 acres in total. And that's before you even go beyond the berm, the other side of the train tracks, and start using up space over there. All of this would be contained within the perimeter of the Magic Kingdom inside the berm. So you've got 12 acres of space there, which does make sense. They're calling it the largest expansion in Magic Kingdom's history, considering that New Fantasyland and Storybook Circus was 10 acres in total. 7 acres of that was New Fantasyland, 3 acres of that was Storybook Circus. So this would technically be the largest land expansion at the Magic Kingdom, being 12 acres in size. Now, as we can see in the artwork, it does seem that the Cars area is using up less than half of what we could see from Rivers of America if it was filled in. So if we roughly measure that out on the map, it's going to be approximately around 4 to maybe 4.5 acres for this Cars themed area. Now, I'm sure they're probably going to end up calling it something like Frontierland. I know Meta has already said that in the Experiences Showcase. So they're probably going to have some sort of puntastic name for this Frontierland section, which is going to be themed around cars. But that is actually much smaller than what we see with Cars Land over in California Adventure, as that over there is 12 acres in size with all of Radiator Springs leading into Radiator Springs races, but you've got the entire town there. Whereas this is going to be a major e-ticket attraction, and then you're going to have a much smaller, family-friendly attraction, and they're going to be kind of connected through this kind of rugged wilderness of Frontierland. Now, obviously, if they're using up around 4 to 4.5 acres for cars within this area of Rivers of America, just within the 12 acres of Rivers of America, that means they've got around 7.5 to 8 acres to work with for Villains Land, which I'm very excited about seeing come to fruition. They are definitely working on Villains Land. The important thing I don't think a lot of people picked up on, but it was noted in the presentation that Josh D'Amaro said that everything that was announced should be complete and open within 5 years. So that puts a time frame of around 2029, end of 2029 to get everything open within this decade. That is a very realistic time frame to get this sort of stuff done, considering that Galaxy's Edge took roughly around 4 years to do from the very beginning at Disneyland to when it opened. So 4 years, more than enough time to get this thing going and complete. Now let's go back to the artwork and look at what we can see within this brand new piece of artwork, and it's definitely new terrain that they're going to be bringing to Frontierland is very much inspired by the Rocky Mountains, which will obviously draw inspiration from all the geographical and geological regions of the Rocky Mountains. So that's Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and then ending in New Mexico, which does make sense because Big Thunder Mountain geologically takes inspiration from Utah with the Bryce Canyon rockwork there. So to have the Rocky Mountains kind of integrated, it does extend out that kind of frontier on the west of America for Frontierland. And so judging from the concept art, we can now expect Frontierland to include snow-capped mountains and hot springs and huge geysers like we see within Yellowstone for inspiration. So although we're saying goodbye to Rivers of America, which I personally really did like having within Magic Kingdom, that waterway, the tranquility of it, I think it just adds something to the park in a whole different way. But to actually have a unique Frontierland different from, Disneyland and Disneyland Paris and Tokyo and stuff like that, and have it unique to the Magic Kingdom, and maybe bring their own type of tranquility of having the wilderness within the Magic Kingdom, I think is going to add an awful lot to this park, because in terms of the Magic Kingdom, it's a lot of concrete and buildings. It's not a lot of landscaping, and so to have this beautiful landscaping that people can explore without having to take any sort of watercraft on over to go see it on Tom Sawyer's Island will open up this whole area and add a lot of capacity to the Magic Kingdom for walking space, because just having additional walking space adds more capacity to a park like this. Now, it was said within the article that this is going to be an original Cars adventure, and as we can see in the artwork, it definitely does not look like Radiator Springs Races. But we're going to have to wait and see how much of that statement of original Cars adventure is not going to be necessarily the same ride system of Radiator Springs Races. And as I said in my previous video on this, the weather's much different to how it is in California. Florida gets a lot of incremental weather, lots of thunderstorms, and that would shut down an outdoor attraction like this. So it'll be interesting to see what ride system they go with, and if it's a brand new ride system and not just the same slot car ride system that we see with Radiator Springs Races over in California, and it's something new. They have said it's an original Cars adventure. And then the other one's going to be a family-friendly attraction, probably some sort of flat ride within this space as well. But now let's move on into Villains Land. We haven't got a ton of details, but we do understand that it's going to be, at the moment, roughly around 8 acres in size. That's before they even go beyond the berm of the Magic Kingdom. Once they start extending beyond the train tracks and beyond the berm, it makes things much more difficult from a logistical standpoint to construct, because they would then need to shut down the railroad, which if they did that again would be very disappointing, as the railroad has just reopened after a very long closure period, a few years there. So to close it again to see another expansion, I think a lot of people would be annoyed about that. So I reckon that they're going to try and stay within the perimeter of the Magic Kingdom here with Villains Land and not have to shut down the railroad. And you may say, well, they'll have to do it anyway because you need to get construction equipment in and out for obviously this Cars area and Villains. But if they're removing the water from Rivers of America, they've already got a bridge that opens and closes for the train, which is obviously to move the Mark Twain riverboat into the dry dock. So they've already got access there into the expansion zone there. And obviously if they're going to be removing the water levels in the basin of the Rivers of America there, you've got a lot more height to work with. You could probably get construction equipment in and out underneath the train tracks without even having to close the railroad. So it's not completely 100% said yet whether they're going to be closing the railroad, but I see it as there's possibility that they could keep it open and work within that section, put construction walls up without having to go beyond the actual train tracks themselves. And logistically, from a financial perspective, if they go beyond the train tracks, that's where they would have to be land graded to make it more suitable for construction. And that's when the cost proposal for these projects start to skyrocket in terms of having to do a lot of preliminary groundwork before they can even go vertical. Whereas if they just fill in and flatten the Rivers of America, they're ready to go. You know, the land is pretty much treated, it's ready to go there. It's stable land to build upon. So very interesting that they're moving in this direction with it. Now, the original proposal, what I heard was that Coco and Cars were both in consideration. Cars was going to be phase 2, Coco was going to be phase 1. Coco was the front runner, had a lot of work put into it. But Imagineering apparently had a kind of pitch presentation meeting for the two proposals, and the Cars proposal was much better put together from a financial perspective to show a greater return on investment strategy through merchandise sales that they could point toward Disney California venturing all the merchandise they sell within Cars Land. And clearly, that is what won over the executives with that strategy. Whereas Coco, they've still got the plans for it, and we can see the Coco attraction over at Disney California Adventure. But the Coco idea was very fleshed out, but it would have required them building west of Beyond Big Thunder over in that sort of section over there. But what's interesting is that considering they're filling in Rivers of America now for these two lands, they're still leaving that space over there to the side of Big Thunder Mountain open. So if they're not going to need the dry dock anymore for the riverboat, that space becomes open for an attraction. And so maybe we will see Coco at some point in the future over on that side there, considering they got so far in the development of that attraction for the Magic Kingdom. Now, in terms of the Moana attraction in Adventureland, from what I heard, it was ready to go. It's a ready-to-go project that they've still got on the table. But the Moana attraction would have needed a whole different construction team over there and different set of infrastructure changes in that sort of corner. So they're trying to contain all the construction together, so therefore it doesn't impact as much backstage for Magic Kingdom, and also it doesn't impact too much of the guest-facing infrastructure within the park as well. So that's very interesting. Magic Kingdom is going to be receiving 4 new attractions. One of those is a family-friendly attraction. 3 of those are supposedly going to be major e-tickets. Within Villains Land, we can see the concept art shows a roller coaster, and it's an inverted roller coaster with inversion loops and stuff like that, and it seems like it's themed around Maleficent, and we can also see Maleficent's dragon in there. So it's that scene within Sleeping Beauty when Prince Philip fights Maleficent. If that's what they're doing for that roller coaster, that will be phenomenal in my opinion. I can't wait to see that happen. Villains Kingdom, they've confirmed once again in the article that they are very much leaning into this kind of twisted, tormented theming for villains. They're really leaning into that kind of scary element. Plus, another point which I don't think many people are talking about is that Magic Kingdom is the heart of Halloween at Walt Disney World, and it's a big revenue generator for Magic Kingdom. So if they're going to have Villains Kingdom within the Magic Kingdom, that's going to pull a lot of people towards Halloween at the Magic Kingdom with Not So Scary. People are going to want to go celebrate Halloween within Villains Kingdom. But also by having this Cars area within Frontierland, they can also do that kind of Halloween overlay that we see over in Cars in California, with that kind of more whimsical trick-or-treat Halloween costume overlay for the cars, which will be more suitable for the little ones to enjoy new parts of Not So Scary at Magic Kingdom as well. So they're making a big play for Halloween at Walt Disney World with these two projects as well. And it's a major revenue generator for them. So I think that also played into the announcement of Cars and Villains Kingdom being done together within Rivers of America. And another point is that Tom Sawyer's Island and Rivers of America, although it was pretty, placemaking wise and theming wise, and I liked the tranquility, it was underutilized space within the Magic Kingdom. It didn't have much attraction capacity. I bet they've got the numbers on how many people were going over to Tom Sawyer's Island each day, and so it makes sense that if they want to add attraction capacity, they remove Tom Sawyer's Island in place of this. And also, by doing that, they make it a lot easier to access Villains Land to the side of Haunted Mansion as a direct pathway into Villains Land over there. So it makes a lot of sense thematically that like Haunted Mansion becomes the beginning place marker for Villains Land to kind of signpost you down towards Villains Land down there. And I'm personally got my hopes up that they're going to do a Haunted Mansion restaurant in that zone. So I know there were some plans to do it to the side of Haunted Mansion, and if they're going to send guests on a pathway down there, potentially we might see something like that. I don't have that confirmed. That's very much just personal speculation at this time. But now it's over to you, Waltoniers. I would love to hear all of your opinions on this brand new piece of concept art for the Magic Kingdom with this massive expansion of the New Frontierland. We don't have a name for it yet, but I'm guessing that's what they're probably going to end up titling it, New Frontierland for the Magic Kingdom in a way. And are you sad to see Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer's Island go? Are you happy with the replacement here being this new tranquil wilderness setting instead within the Magic Kingdom? I'm personally going to remain cautiously optimistic that it will be equally as tranquil as Tom Sawyer's Island was to go over there and explore Tom Sawyer's Island. But I am very optimistic about Villains Land within Magic Kingdom and it happening within the next 5 years because they're building within the perimeters of the Magic Kingdom and using up the space of Rivers of America to do so. So with that being said, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, because from what I've heard, more blog post announcements are happening later on this week, so I'll be back again to discuss all of that. I want to talk about Monsters Inc. in a much bigger way over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I've heard some things about that, so stay tuned for that in a video. And also, I'd like to say a massive thank you to the official Waltonier Club over on Patreon for always supporting the channel, and also the official Waltonier Gold members that you can see here on the screen as well, and official Waltonier Diamond members JC Russell and Kyle Mahan. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.